Power to the truth. This is Margo. This is Thursday, March the 21st, 2019, 4:41 p.m. Pacific Time, United States of America. So yesterday we saw new methane data from Friday the 15th on CAMS, and now they've taken that day down and they have Saturday from March 16th up. So not quite a week old, but I wish they would just get their act together so that we could be current on all this stuff. So I had the Arctic view pulled up, and level is surface level. So here's where it ended on Friday, with this release coming up to the east of the Scandinavian countries there, and a release next to Novaya Zemlya, and this large release in Russia here that was building and is releasing, and this new one that's building, and this reddish orangey release out of the Chukchi Sea. So that's where we ended on Friday. And I have the movie loaded so we can see what's going on up there. Okay, here it goes. So we see this new build-up right over here in Russia, and it releases and builds and releases a little bit and then keeps building. This is a really active area for releasing methane, and more release here in the Kara Sea, more release in the Chukchi Sea, and moving across all the way across the Arctic. So we're just seeing this as a pattern, and over here in Canada is a lot of methane. I'm not sure where that is, but just on the other side of the US border from Idaho. So we'll stop that. I also have it ready to go for the North Pole view so that we can see all the northern hemisphere. So here we go. Okay, now it's starting over. Here is at the end of Saturday, with large release out of the northern part of India and all over China and Asia, and that's where it ended on Saturday. And it builds during the daylight hours, and that's why you see it pulsing, because it's more in the daylight hours and gets much less at nighttime. So that's why you see it come and go, like in the US, so much. This is in the daytime hours and then it goes away. But we can see a lot more methane release in the US since it's starting to warm up, and it's very wet, and it's been raining. We have a lot of clouds over on the eastern side of the United States too. So lots of flooding worldwide. It's phenomenal, and it just breaks my heart to see what's happening. And I did have a dream a couple of nights ago, and they were showing me the flooding, that how it was going to change the continents and the land masses, but specifically they were showing me the United States, and this was all underwater, all in the middle of the United States, from the Mississippi out, and they said it was from the flooding. So I think we see this underway, and it's just like Guy McPherson said. He said, and we haven't even had the Blue Ocean event in the Arctic, supposedly, but we're having all of the effects of having had a Blue Ocean event with so low sea ice up there. And he was saying that, once the weather patterns got so out of balance that you couldn't grow and store grains, then the end would be near. Then modern civilization would be coming to an end pretty soon. And what we've seen with all this, the rain and the flooding in the Midwest of the United States, that's the breadbasket of the United States, and that's where they grow most of the grains, including wheat, corn, sorghum, things like that. And they also have a lot of ranchers there, and they raise a lot of cattle, and these areas along Mississippi and the Missouri River, they're backed up. And I was listening to a video this morning. This guy was talking about the levee systems along the Missouri River, and that all these rivers feeding into the Missouri River, they have these levees where it blocks the water from going into the Mississippi. It holds it back because it's basically designed to keep the Mississippi River out from when it rises, and so they can't reverse those. And so with the water flooding coming down so fast in those rivers filling up so fast, and they're not flowing into the Mississippi, is what he said. I mean, it's a video that I was watching this morning. I don't know if that's true or not. If people know, if they could just leave a comment below, that would be interesting. But with the water not being able to flow into the Mississippi, then it's backing up and causing flooding on the land. And I don't know if that's true or not. It doesn't make a lot of sense when you really think about it, because I mean, you gotta have water flowing into the Mississippi. I mean, those rivers have to go somewhere. But I think the idea was these levee systems were put in place to keep the water for farming. So I don't know. But he was saying, and I believe this as well, that the ground is so wet that the farmers are not going to be able to plant their crops. It's not going to be dry enough for them to plant in time to make anything this year. And I read one article where it said all the store, they store all the grains in the silos, that those have been wiped out from the floods. So we're in the beginning of some really, really, really tough times, and it's going to take a lot of fortitude for us to stay here and to function and to withstand all the things we're going to come up against. it's going to take a lot of inner strength and inner wisdom and just a lot of being innovative and a lot of just releasing and a lot of prayer and you know, like we've been talking about, you know, time is short and we don't know how long we have, but every day is one day less than we had before. So there's that. So I'm going to start with this news item out of Africa, CAG News, Africa. This is from Thursday, today, March 21st, and it says, breaking, 5,000 Mozambicans could be drowned in next 24 hours. This is from Maputo. Thousands of Mozambicans are clinging on rooftops and trees for dear life amid fears more than 100,000 people will be submerged in water if they are not rescued. Now this is from the flooding from that cyclone a day that we saw, that I was reporting on last week. Well, the waters are still rising apparently. Oh, so this said if they're not rescued in the next 24 hours. This follows rivers burst their banks and engulfing communities in cyclone-hit Mozambique. Bursting rivers inundated large swaths of land. There are fears Bouzy Town, with an estimated 5,000 people, including more than 2,500 children, could be underwater within 24 hours. The assessment emerging from Mozambique today is chilling. Thousands of children lived in areas completely engulfed by water. In many places, no roofs or treetops are even visible above the floods. In other areas, people are clinging to rooftops, desperately waiting to be rescued. And they're in a race against the clock, and it's especially true in Bouzy, where they have less than 24 hours to get people out. They said that they're thinking that more than 1,000 people may have lost their lives, and 600,000 people have been affected following Cyclone Idai. People displaced by floods are mostly without water, food, shelter, and health care. The cyclone slammed into northern Mozambique last Friday, leaving a trail of destroyed homes, schools, hospitals, and infrastructure. It is feared the storms will spark an outbreak of waterborne disease such as cholera. And it probably will. It probably will. Here's NASA Worldview. And down here, got that big black line in the middle. Mozambique is right down here. This is Mozambique. Remember that cyclone came across, and Beir is right down here, and Bouzy is right down here in this area. So we can't really see the ground here because it's so cloudy. And so we can't really see the river and the flooding and all that because it's covered up with clouds. It's been covered for days on end with clouds, but it's in that area there. So there's that story. Then I had a request from one of my viewers over on YouTube, from Carmel Brain. Says, thanks for all your hard effort. This is very informative. You're welcome, Caramel Brain. Could you give a rundown tomorrow on Trevor and Cyclone Veronica? Veronica seems to have come out of nowhere and is now a Category 5 heading toward the Pilbara. Glad that I don't live at the top end of Australia. So I did a little research because I do want to follow up on Trevor, and then this is Veronica over here on the west side, and I'd seen it kind of forming a couple of days ago, but you know, back here on the 18th it didn't look like a whole heck of a lot. Here it is on the 20th, it was starting to take shape. I mean the 19th, it was starting to take shape, and here it is on the 20th with the big black line through it. But it is definitely forming, and here it is today, and this is Veronica, so it is definitely well formed into a cyclone and is getting ready to make landfall here in Australia. So, and here's what Trevor is doing. It's made its way across this York Peninsula, and now it's heading into this Gulf of Carpentaria, and it's going to be picking up speed and steam and going to be coming down to this northern part of Queensland. So if we look on Climate Reanalyzer, if we look at the precipitation and clouds, we'll just zip around the world looking at the clouds and precipitation. We've still got this large band of rain going all the way across the Atlantic up to the UK. The eastern part of the United States is still getting rain and snow up north. Out west, we're getting rain and snow in the Four Corners area of the country, and rain and snow over Nevada, Oregon, and parts of California. So there's that, and it shows that it's raining down in Mozambique. I mean, it's like that's why it's not, nothing can get settled there. Then when we're coming on around, Australia is kind of hard to see on Climate Reanalyzer on this view. Actually, well, let's go down here. This would be so much easier. Okay, why didn't I, brain fart. I don't know why I didn't think about coming down here anyway with it flat. So down here, here's Cyclone Trevor, where the eye of it has already passed across this northern peninsula. But look at the rain. The green is the rain. You can see this whole area across there, across north of Australia, and then on this peninsula is still getting rain. And then here's Cyclone Veronica, and its eye is very well formed, and it's in the red there. It's kind of hard to see. We can't get close up on that picture, but there's South America, there's Antarctica, and so this is the best picture we can get of Australia here. So Trevor, as of when they did this map today, was just leaving the northern peninsula, and then Veronica was still building over here. So I've got some news items to cover that too. This is from Cyclones Trevor, current status, the speed is 50 knots per hour. Maximum predicted wind speed 105 knots or miles per hour at Friday, March 22nd at 11 o'clock a.m. So remember, Australia is like a day ahead of those of us in the United States. So there's a picture of it moving in, moving into this Gulf area. And it moves in and it spreads out. Trevor land hazards, Vanuatu, marine wind warning, severe weather warning, tropical low information, TL forecast track map, American Samoa. You can click on any of these. Fiji, Solomon Islands, New Caledonia, if you want to see hazards for that. Here's the Trevor tracker and the Veronica tracker too, all in one map. So here's the Trevor tracker. So here it is. Category 3 by Friday, March 22nd at 11 a.m. And that was 18 hours from when this was posted. Winds 105 knots or 121 miles per hour. It's a cyclone hybrid. That's what they're calling it. So that's about the time they're expecting it. I'm not sure when they're going to make landfall. Category 2 by the 23rd at 6 a.m. That's UTC time. And it's 85 knots, 98 miles per hour. And then it's going to go down to tropical storm level as it moves on inland. So, but it's going to be mainly hit kind of in the middle there. And then Veronica, we'll look at Veronica separately. Here's the Trevor satellite loop. That's a big storm. Trevor watches and warnings. Okay, here we go. Here's where it's going to be at all the locations. That's the longitude and latitude over there. So if you want to check it out for yourself, you can go to this website. So I have more. Now let's look at Veronica's storm tracker. Veronica, current status 105 knots. Maximum predicted wind speed 135 knots or 155 miles per hour. And this was at Thursday, March 21st, 11 p.m. So here it's coming in to hit right in that little crook there. That's a category 3 as it's making landfall. A 100 knots or 115 miles per hour. for Saturday, March 23rd, 11 a.m. That's when they think it's going to hit land, I think. Here's the Veronica cyclone. That looks mean. Here's watches and warnings. Public advisory not available. Here's the storm path. And so forth. Now, let's check out our next one. Got 2 more news items on these. So, people in Australia batten down the hatches. So, thousands of NT residents evacuated as Cyclone Trevor looms. Residents are being evacuated from Northern Territory communities before severe tropical Cyclone Trevor arrives with destructive winds and storms. This was updated 2 hours ago. More than 2,000 residents have been evacuated from Northern Territory communities located in the path of a massive tropical cyclone. Cyclone Trevor is likely to cross the Northern Territory coast on Saturday as a Category 4 severe tropical cyclone, throwing out gale force winds, rain, and tidal surges 300 kilometers from its eye, and is headed towards the town of Borroloola. A state of emergency has been declared in the Gulf country, with schools closed and police able to order people to evacuate and close roads and businesses. So, the tropical cyclone warning was in place for Groote Island on Thursday night, which was expected to feel the effects. Here's from the Bureau of Meteorology. Tropical cyclone will continue to intensify in the Gulf of Carpentaria. A severe impact on the southwestern Gulf of Carpentaria coast is likely over the weekend. So it's going to hit right about there. A flood watch was issued for the Carpentaria coastal waters and Barkley regions, with predicted rainfalls of 150 to 250 millimeters on Saturday and isolated falls to 300 millimeters along the coast on dry ground following a poor wet season. Anxious residents worried about their homes and pets were evacuated by road and on Australia Defence Force cargo planes from Borroloola, Numbulwar, Groote Island, and other indigenous communities. We've used buses, vehicles, ferries, planes, helicopters, and anything else in between we can get our hands on. So they did a good job getting people out. They've been arriving in Darwin and Catherine, where sleeping facilities, including tent cities, have been set up. It's the largest evacuation prior to a cyclone in the territory's history and largest type of any evacuation since Cyclone Tracy in 1974. The severity and threat of the storm, as well as complications with the remoteness of the area, led to the decision to evacuate. Trevor left behind trail of destruction in Queensland's Cape York Peninsula earlier this week, uprooting trees, causing flooding and roof damage, closing schools and roads, and downing power lines. It is gathering intensity again as it moves over the hot waters in the Gulf. Very destructive winds with gusts of over 260 kilometers per hour, heavy rainfall, and a dangerous storm tide are expected near the cyclone center as it approaches and crosses the coast, said the Bureau's Todd Smith. Mr. Smith has not ruled out the cyclone strengthening to a Category 5 with winds of more than 300 kilometers per hour. So here's Port MacArthur. That's where they're expecting it to come in. ADF aircraft move in. Australian Defence Force Hercules aircraft are being used to transport people who have begun arriving in Darwin and Katherine, where indoor sleeping facilities are being set up at local showgrounds. That includes creating barriers to ensure Indigenous cultural protocols are followed and people are spoken to in local languages. About 600 out of Groote Eyland's population of 2,800 have been evacuated, but authorities are now focusing on Burralula with a population of 900. The evacuations are starting with the most vulnerable, and people who are not evacuated in time will be moved into emergency shelters. We have the capacity and capability to look after them as long as we need to, until water and power are safe again and houses are habitable again. Now that's good management. That's good. I mean, you just don't hear about that here in the United States. You just don't hear about that. Trevor left a trail of destruction. Already read that. And so on. So I will leave the link to that below. So that's coming on in. Trevor is coming on in to. So this here's at 7 a.m. March 23rd. We can look at this on Twitter if we want. That's a better picture. Here's 7 a.m. March 23rd, and then here it's going to be hitting landfall sometime on the 23rd. But people will already start getting the rain. So here's Port MacArthur, here's Burralula where they're evacuating, and so on. So that's a bad storm. It's a bad storm. And now, one more article for our triple whammy expected from twin cyclones as evacuations increase. This is from today, from the Sydney Morning Herald. Australia's north is bracing for coastal crossings of two dangerous cyclones in coming days as the Northern Territory conducts its biggest pre-storm evacuation and the Pilbara's iron ore ports prepare for hammering. Tropical Cyclone Trevor, which crossed the Cape York Peninsula this week, is expected to re-intensify into a Category 4 strength tempest by Friday afternoon with very destructive winds reaching gusts of 275 kilometers per hour. It's forecast to cross the Northern Territory's Gulf coastline near Burralula on Saturday afternoon. So that's what we were just talking about. And so here's where Veronica's coming in, and here's Trevor. Off Western Australia, Cyclone Veronica has already reached Category 4 strength with wind gusts of 260 kilometers per hour. The storm is expected to strengthen to a Category 5 event by later on Thursday as it pivots toward the coast between Karratha and Port Hedland with gusts nearing 320 kilometers per hour. A crossing is expected on Sunday. I'm just curious, I don't know these kilometers per hour, so convert kmh to mph, kph. So what was that? So that was 320. That's 198 miles an hour. That's almost 200 miles an hour. I've never heard of winds that high. That's unbelievable. That's insane. It's 200. Now let's look at 260. 161 miles per hour. Oh my gosh. This is going to wipe everything out. Seriously. And gusts of 275. 275. Let's see what 275 is. That's 170 miles an hour. I can't even imagine that. So you don't want to be in the wake of this storm. So for all my friends down under, if you're in that area, you need to get out of there. Get out of there and go be evacuated. Don't try to weather it. Don't weather it in place. Do not. You need to be evacuated. So here's a time frame. So they're expecting it to really hit on as a category 5 as it comes in here from starting on 8 p.m. March 21st to 8 a.m. March 22nd. That's already happened because this is because that's a day ahead of what we are here. So by 8 p.m. March 23rd, they expect it to be a category 5, and then by 8 a.m. March 24th, then it's going to be hitting land between Port Hedland and Karratha. But all these areas around it are going to be affected because of those wide arms of that hurricane. We do have like a triple whammy of long duration, heavy rain bringing flooding risk and storm tides. Both Trevor and Veronica will approach the coast as tides reach their highest levels this year. Cyclone Trevor has also caused flooding and structural damage in the Lockhart River region on Tuesday as it moved through. Said the Lockhart River Arts Indigenous Corporation said the area's art center had part of its roof ripped off. The sound was so loud it was as though there was a war going on outside. Look at that tree. Oh my gosh. Look, it slammed right down onto that car. About 1,000 residents have already been evacuated from the Gulf of Carpentaria's Groot Island, etc., etc. All cyclones in this area are unpredictable and make the situation complex and dynamic. The severity of the storm, the significant threat it poses, and the complications that come from the remoteness of the area led to the evacuation decision. So here's Trevor. Here's all the details for Trevor. So they're going to be hitting around the same time, it looks like. So, I will leave the link below if people want to check that out. And I have one more story for today. This came in compliments of Jochen Spalding, one of my YouTube viewers. Thank you, Jochen, for this. This was a most interesting article from Gizmodo. This is from Tuesday. Mysterious planet-wide rumble may have come from the largest underwater eruption ever recorded. Let's go to Clean View. And here's a satellite image of Methane Island in the Indian Ocean. Now we know where that is because we see that on the earthquake map. But Methane Island is right next to Australia. It's right here. Right there. That's Methane Island. Right there. No, yeah. Hang on. Let me double check. I don't want to say anything wrong here. Hold on. Okay, I'm glad I double checked. Yeah, this is Madagascar. What was I thinking? I was having a brain fart. I'm getting more of those every day. I don't know what that is about. Methane Island is right up here. It's a little tiny island. I just pulled it up on Google Earth, and here's what it looks. It's a little tiny thing. But we have seen earthquakes there. And it's in between Madagascar and Mozambique. This is Mozambique right here. So it's in between this larger island and the southern Africa continent there. So let's go back to our article now. On November 11th, 2018, a deep rumble ricocheted around the world, one that humans couldn't feel, but that registered quite clearly on seismometers. I remember that, where it was shaking all around the world all at the same time. A new preprint paper about the event is now suggesting that it was caused by the largest offshore volcanic event in recorded history. Originating 30 miles east of the island of Methane, near Madagascar, the mid-November signal immediately caught the attention of a disparate group of geoscientists. They subsequently took to Twitter to express their fascination over this mysterious event. One even joked about a giant prehistoric sea monster. The rumble formed part of a prolonged seismic sequence that had started in the area back in May 2018. But the very low frequency, potent growl in November stood out because it wasn't immediately obvious what caused it. These scientists eventually agreed that it could only have originated from a volcanic event, one involving the movement of a vast volume of magma beneath the seafloor, causing the ground there to significantly deflate. Now, a new paper by researchers at the French Geological Survey and France's École Normale Supérieure has been uploaded to the public server Earth Archive. Although there are plenty of unanswered questions, this first-order estimation of what happened between May and mid-November matches up with the calculations of those geoscientists that took to social media. In fact, the volume of magma involved is so huge that this is certainly one of the largest offshore volcanic events to be spotted by modern scientific instrumentation. There's a major caveat to all this, however. Compared to land-based monitoring, there's a huge lack of offshore monitoring happening around the world today, and there are likely plenty of offshore events that have taken place since modern records began that scientists haven't picked up on. Make no mistake though, the recent event offshore from Methane, which is still ongoing, is colossal. According to the data from the onshore GPS stations as well as the seismic signals, including the weird November 11th event, the rumbling is definitely being generated by volcanic activity of some sort. The way the ground on Methane is moving implies that the seafloor off its eastern shoreline is sinking at a rate of 0.4 inches per month. At the same time, Methane itself is shifting eastward at a rate of 0.63 inches per month. Both indicate something huge underground is on the move, causing some serious deflation. The nature of these tremors suggests that the magmatic source is centered at a depth of 16 miles beneath the seafloor. In the first 6 months of the sequence alone, at least 0.24 cubic miles of magma has shifted around. That's roughly equivalent to 385 Great Pyramids of Giza. So anyway, this is, I'm not going to read the whole article, but this is proof that there's stuff going on under the ocean all the time. And you know, when we see like those sulfur dioxide plumes coming up out of the ocean, then it's probably, my thought is, it's from some kind of underwater volcanic event. So it's kind of a long article. So they're just investigating it right now. They've had unverified reports that the fish that died were deep sea fish. There were a bunch of fish that died offshore Methane. And they're saying that volcanic gases can suffocate sea life during eruptions. But the preprint reports that the gases remain trapped in the magma. Well, I don't buy that. I don't buy that the gases are trapped in the magma. Whenever magma moves or is exposed to water or air or anything, gases are given off. That's just the way it is. We've seen that with the earthquakes and other stuff. Continuing about the deep sea fish, the magmatic activity may have scared them up to the surface where they experienced low pressures that they couldn't survive in. Robinson said that the magma, which may have intruded into seafloor sediments, cooked those sediments and released carbon dioxide into the water column, which could also have asphyxiated those deep sea fish. All of the above. It could have been all of the above. So thank you, Jochen, for that article. That was very interesting. I will leave the link below in case people want to read that. And now I'm going to take a short break and we'll be right back for Earthquake Report. Don't go anywhere. Okay, I'm back. So we've got USGS pulled up here for all magnitudes for the last 24 hours, and we're showing 243 on the map right now. Of those, we have 38 that are 2.5 magnitude or higher. So we're seeing some larger ones over here in North America. And look at this line. We'll look at, first of all, this V shape in Alaska. and we've got one up here in Canada where we normally don't have earthquakes. This is all in the northern circle, I believe. So, or Arctic circle, in the from 60 degrees north latitude. That's considered the Arctic circle, or the Arctic region. So we've got, and then look at this line coming down through South America, and then we've got some big ones over here north of New Zealand in the Fiji and Tonga area, and then we've got them coming around this red line, and then a big one in Africa too. So we've got a lot of activity going on today. So we'll see what is about to come off the map that we might need to cover. I think we're okay. I can start wherever I want. So I'm going to start with Africa, since we've been talking about Africa. Right down here in Tanzania. Now here's Mozambique, and this is Malawi here, and then Tanzania lies just to the north of Mozambique. And there was a 5.5 that happened near Sumbawanga, Tanzania at 2:15 this morning. This is Pacific time, 22 kilometers deep. Now that's big enough. That would cause damage. That would definitely cause damage. But it was in a lake. It was in Lake Rukwa. So that probably didn't cause any damage with it being in the lake. So that's a good thing that it was in the lake. Next, coming on around, was a 4.3 near Nongstoin, India at 7:30 this morning. Coming down and around, here's one in Indonesia, right on the coastline there, a 4.7 near Sibilier, Indonesia at 8:03 this morning, 66 kilometers deep. Next, right to the north of Papua New Guinea on this red line was a 4.9 near Ngurume, Papua New Guinea at 3:33 this morning. Now coming on into the South Pacific with Niue and Fiji. We've got the top one is a 4.3 near Niue Island, Fiji at 10:40 last night. Very deep. This is one of the deepest ones I've ever seen. 610 kilometers deep. That's one of the deepest, if not the deepest. 610. That's very deep. That will cause movement around the planet. All of these were deep. Next to it was a 4.5 near Niue Island, Fiji at 9:35 this morning, 591 kilometers deep. So that was almost 600 kilometers deep. And then down here was a 4.8 near Raoul Island, New Zealand at 10:47 this morning, 194 kilometers deep, and a 5.1 near Lesperance Rock, New Zealand at 12:24 this afternoon. So these were in the ocean in the Kermadec Islands here. Here's the Kermadec Islands, and so this is near there. So Those were in the ocean, so they probably didn't cause any damage, but just the depth of those earthquakes is incredible. Just incredible depth on those. Next, we've got one in the middle of the Caspian Sea, a 4.7 near Turkmenbasi, Turkmenistan, at 8:43 this morning, 44 kilometers deep. And then here's a 4.4 near Yazihan, Turkey, at 10:51 last night. That's all for that part of the world. Now let's hop down to South America. We're going to start down here first. A 4.3 near Cauquenes, Chile at 1:34 this afternoon, 49 kilometers deep. 4.8 near La Puerta de San Jose, Argentina at 8:31 this morning, 130 kilometers deep. 4.5 near Calama, Chile at 9:57 this morning, 108 kilometers deep. Moving on up, 4.8 near Huancavelica, Peru at 12:47 this afternoon, 80 kilometers deep. And a 4.4 near San Andres, Colombia at 11:38 this morning, 151 kilometers deep. So quite a few rocking around down there in South America. Then we've got one off the coast of southern Mexico again. A 4.2 near Salina Cruz, Mexico at 5:28 this morning. So that, and then hopping on up to Canada, let's move to all magnitudes now. I want to cover this one right here. This is in the northern Yukon. There were two here. They're stacked up. This is in the Northwest Territory, but they were in pretty much the same place. That's why they were stacked up. The first one was a 4.6 near Fort Good Hope, Canada, at 9:33 this morning, 2.6 kilometers deep. And then there was a 4.0 that happened at 1:12 this afternoon. So we normally don't see them up here, but for whatever reason we had two good size up there. Then we had two more right down here. This is considered part of Alaska territory. A 2.5 and a 2.0 and a 2.5 near Gustavus, Alaska. While we're up here, let's just go ahead and cover Alaska. We also had one in the Bering Strait, a 3.5 near Little Diomede Island, Alaska at 1:16 this morning. But it's off the coastline, and we can see it's closer to Alaska than to Russia, but it is in the Bering Strait. So we have all magnitudes pulled up here, and if we take away this one from Canada, we're showing 45 here of all magnitudes. Now remember, Alaska typically has between 50 and 100 earthquakes per day. So it's a very seismic region. So, but little ones lead to big ones. Here's a 2.3, 1.1, 2.0, 3.2 near Anchor Point. That's a larger one. Here's a 2.5. 1.9. Now these are near Redoubt Volcano. Here's a 2.1 in this Cook Inlet. Here's a 2.6, 1.7, 1.8, 2.7, 2.2. So here's the Anchorage region. They've really calmed down. There's only 9 right there today, right in Anchorage. Let's look at this one that just came in, a 2.0 near Talkeetna. Here's another. Here's a 2.2 at Willow, 1.8, and so on. So there are 2s and 1s, and that 1, 3. Here's a 2.5, 2.3, 1.8, 0.7. So anyway, and then they're peppered around through the state. Now up here we've been seeing a swarm or clustering at Kobuk. We only have 2 here today, a 2.0 and a 2.8. And then up here at Koktovik we have 2. We have a 1.8 at 0 kilometers depth and a 2.2. So there's Alaska for you. Now let's come down to Hawaii. We're seeing 8 here today. Now I thought we would have a little history lesson. Just because I've not done this before. And let's type in Hawaii volcanoes. And let's see what we can find. And we will learn about Hawaii volcanoes. Look at that. Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. So here this is interesting. Kilauea. Here's Kilauea. Here's Punya River. That's not exactly what I was looking for, though. Here's Mauna Kea. So there are lots and lots of volcanoes here. Island of Hawaii. So here's Mauna Loa. Maybe you just have to zoom in to see them. See them all. So it's like the whole island is just almost one big volcano, just one after another after another. I've never been there, so you know, I don't know about this stuff from having been there. So there's Mauna Kea, Mauna Loa. I know Kilauea's down here, and there's some more on there too. So I just thought that might be interesting. So we've got 8 here today. We've got a 1.8, that's at Kilauea. Here's a 3.0 near Pahala. That's getting on up there. A 2.3 near Hawaii. So I think we saw a volcano right up there at the tip at Hawaii. I don't know, I'm kind of going off into no man's land here. So I probably need to do a little more research before I show you all of those. So I'll just call them off. 1.9 Pahala, 1.8 Ho now poo poo. 1.3, same place. 1.8, same place. And 2.0 near Pahala. So this is just showing activity, is what it's showing. Lots and lots of activity. Especially with that 3.0 that showed up. Okay, now let's move across to the Dominican Republic. And we've got 11 here today, so I'll call these off. A 1.7, 2.6, 2.1, 2.6, 2.1, 2.1, 2.6, 2.8, 3.0, 2.8, and 2.1. So we saw a little cluster here just to the north of Puerto Rico, near north of Isabela. So there's that. Now coming into the lower 48, we're going to start over here in Tennessee. Actually, nope, Kentucky. Virginia, okay, gotta get my states right. 2.1 near Coburn, Virginia at 5:53 yesterday afternoon. 0.1 kilometers depth, not very deep. Next, we have a 2.3 near Salina, Kansas at 1:51 this morning. Next, we have 2 down in Texas. There was a 3.0 near Pecos at 3:53 this morning. And a 3.1, they're calling it near Loving, New Mexico, but it was actually across the border in Texas at 9:16 this morning. Loving, New Mexico was the reporting station. Now coming on up to Utah, we're seeing 8 right here on the map. We've got 3 at Farron, 2.3, that's the biggest one, 1.9 and 1.4. This 1.4 was at a minus 0.3 kilometers depth, so that was up in the mountain. Let's go up to this pair here, 1.5 and 1.9 near Gunnison. Now, we saw Farron. Now we're going to go, here's a 1.8 near East Carbon City. No, we didn't see Farron. What did we see? Oh, there are 2 Farrons. There's one on the west side and one on the east side. So let's look at the east side Farrons, a 1.2 and a 1.2. That's confusing because they both say Farron. Anyway. Now here's one almost on the border. 1.6 near Richmond, Utah at 11:10 this morning. Then we're coming on up into Idaho with a 2.4 near Soda Springs at 3:01 this morning at a minus 3.3 kilometers depth. So the earthquake was up in the mountain. Up there, getting up there. So we've got activity here at Yellowstone. I'm going to start with that big one, a 3.1 near Clinton, Montana at 8:32 this morning. 14 kilometers deep. That's our biggest one up here today. Then a 1.1 near Lincoln at 10:20. Here's a quarry blast, just what we need. 1.6 magnitude quarry blast near Butte, Montana at 12:02 this afternoon at minus 2 kilometers depth. 0.8 near Manhattan, Montana. Here's a 1.2 near West Yellowstone, Montana, and 1.2 near West Yellowstone, Montana. And then we've got 2 in the lake here, 3 in the lake. And they call it your Old Faithful geyser. We've got a 1.4 and a 1.0 and a 1.7, all in the middle of Yellowstone Lake there. Did we get that one? Jackson, Wyoming, 1.9 at 10:44 this morning. We got that one. We got that one. Yep. I think that's all of our Yellowstone earthquakes. Okay, now moving on into Washington. We've got all kinds of explosions here. Blasting, explosion, explosion. One right after another. We've got the most recent one is this 1.5 near Forks, Washington at 11:16 this morning at a minus 0.6 kilometers depth. And then on the other end of the state was a 2.4 magnitude. That's huge. 2.4 magnitude explosion in the Spokane region, just south of Spokane, at 8:33 this morning at minus 0.7 kilometers depth. That is a huge explosion to cause that kind of earthquake. Then a 1.6 magnitude explosion near Dayton, Washington at 11:12 this morning at minus 0.4 kilometers depth. 1.5 near Toppenish at 9:54. 0.8 near Amboy at 10:29 last night. And a 0 near Morton at 11:22 last night. Now you remember what's at Amboy, it's Mount St. Helens volcano, and it looks like that earthquake, that Amboy is right on the crater. That's Mount St. Helens, it's right on the crater there. But it was deep, it was 5 kilometers deep. Now, moving on down, Oregon is not reporting anything today. Doesn't mean they're not having them. It's just not being reported. Next, in the Pacific Ocean, we've got this 2.3 on this red line, on the San Andreas fault line that connects to the Juan de Fuca plate near Petrolia, that happened at 12:36 this afternoon. Now let's see how many are at the geysers today. 42. Oh my gosh. They're percolating down there. Most of them are under 1. Here's a 2.1. That's one of the larger ones. Here's a 2.5. They are cooking away. And most of them are under 1. 42 at the geysers. Feels like Friday to me. I don't know why. Next, in the San Francisco area, we have a 1.1 near Crockett at 4:13 this morning. Let's come on down to San Andreas fault line. Here's a 1.5 magnitude quarry blast near Loyola at 12:19 this afternoon, minus 0.3 kilometers depth. 1.2 near Alum Rock 1.2 near Hollister, 1.2 near Gonzales. There's some right on that red line. 1.3 near San Ardo. And then we've got them stacked up here. 0.8 at Parkfield and a 1.0 at Parkfield. Okay, here's one in the ocean. 1.7 near Guadalupe at 8:46 this morning. Here's a 1.1 near Fraser Park. Now coming into Southern California, we've got 36 on the map here today. Here's a blast. 1.5 magnitude quarry blast near Los Algodones, but it's actually in California at 3:21 this afternoon, minus 0.2 kilometers depth. And here's a cluster or pair, 2.2 Ocotillo Wells and a 1.1. And we're seeing a lot of pairs and clusters. Look at the 3 here at Lake Henshaw. There's 3 right there. Here's Kauai building back up. There's 12 in that viewing area today. Did we get this one? 2.2 at Corona. Here's a 0.9 near Fontana. And they're just peppered around. Let's see what's okay, we got that. Anderson Springs. Did we get that one? I don't think we went there yet. 2.5. Maybe it was part of the geysers. Anyway, let's come on up. California. Here's a 1.4 magnitude explosion near Sandy Valley, Nevada, but it's in California. Here's a 1.4 at Bodfish, 1.2 at Bodfish, and at Little Lake we have 11 here today. Little Lake and Coso Junction. So these have calmed down. Remember we were seeing 30 at Coso Junction the last few days. So they're still clustering, but they're 5 right there. So that's better than 30. Here's 3 right there. And 8 right there. You wouldn't know it to look at it. So anyway, now let's come on up California, and then we'll cover Nevada. 0.9 near Lone Pine. Now coming into the Mammoth area, we've got 8 here today. So these are pretty small. The largest one was the 1.6, and then the rest of them are under that. 1.2 at Bishop, and then the rest are under 1s. Then here's a 1.0 near Smith Valley, 1.4 near Gardnerville. Okay, coming into Northern California and the Reno area, we had 2 near Truckee, a 0.4, a 0.8, and a 0.4. Then we had 2 near Cold Springs, a 0.4 and a 0.5. That's it for that. The rest of Reno's clear. Carson City's clear. Up here we had a 1.8 near Winnemucca, Nevada. We saw that through what, 3.5 there yesterday. So this one happened at 11:04 this morning. Here's a 1.4 near Fallon. Actually southeast of Fallon. Right next to the road. Here's a 0.5 near Hawthorne. That's all at Hawthorne. Hawthorne is quiet. And then down here in southern Nevada we have 7 down here peppered around. They're small. They're under 1s. So I think that's a wrap. Not quite a wrap. We just had this 4.9 in South Africa, near Virginia, South Africa. This came in at 5:30 this afternoon, 9 kilometers deep. Look at that. So that could have been a 5. I don't know if that caused any damage or not. What else we got? 2.0 at Talkeetna. Let's see if there's anything else of significance that I missed or that needs reporting on now. I think that's it. So we'll wrap it up for today. I hope everyone has a good evening, and I hope everyone's safe, and I'm praying for everyone who are in harm's way or needs help or rescue or things like that. I'm just praying for everybody because time is short and no one knows the day or the hour. So I recommend that everyone get your spiritual houses in order right now while you still have time. I love you guys. Until next time, God bless you. Go in peace and goodbye.